Welcome back to Minus 16, and we're rapidly approaching our 100th episode. Not quite there yet, but there's some football shirt stuff going on. We'll talk about that later. There's lots to get through in this episode of Minus 16. There's going to be quite a lot of Android talk. Alex has got a lot of Android devices there, and we're going to be chatting about those. We're going to give a few thoughts on WWDC, which is coming up. That's been confirmed now in June. And also studio news. We're going to be talking studios and how we set them up, and the exciting news that Daniel's got about possibly moving studio, and a whole host of things coming up in this podcast. So sit down, get yourself a brew, and enjoy. So, chaps, Android world. I've got a feeling I'm going to be quite quiet in this podcast, but
me too, because I've not got much either.
Alex, you seem like a lot of devices there at the moment. So
yeah, it's the first year that I've actually been inundated with content ideas, but even less time than usual. I mean, for the first 3-4 years, I was probably just doing Apple and Samsung. Then I started doing Pixels a little bit more, and that just opened a whole door of other content. And it's not just smartphones; it's the wearables, the pads. So this year, for the first time, I'm reviewing Xiaomi devices. So I'm wearing their watch. I've got the buds, their iPad, their pad, and their phone, but also Oppo and mid-range phones from sub brands of Xiaomi and Samsung. There's quite a lot.
Quick question that comes to mind is, in the hand, do these lesser known brands, I'm not going to play them down by saying not as good, but just lesser known, do they still have a feeling of quality to them? You know, there's a substance when you pick up an S25 they just feel solid and good and quality.
That's the surprise thing for me. I mean, being from Brazil, I mean, I think a lot of people probably go, hang on, you should know this stuff, because they are quite popular in that market. So people like Oppo, Xiaomi, Poco, all of these brands are extremely popular in South America and in Asia as well. So I think when we say lesser known, I think it's probably lesser known for us in Europe and America, right? Because if you look at the number of devices, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra is sold out globally. So it's a popular phone. So I think it's just a question of it not being available, like we spoke on it before, right? Not being available in the Western market as prominently as the other brands. But I think when you pick them up, I mean, the Oppo is a good example. I mean, we showed this before here in the pod, right? It's, if you put an Apple logo on this, you would not be able to argue with it. It's an amazing piece of hardware, or a Samsung logo in it for that matter. It's actually more refined than the Fold. When you pick the Fold 6 and pick this, and it's honestly not even close. I love Samsung. I love the ecosystem that Samsung brings, the experience that they brought to their devices. There's a lot to be said about how they work together, and Apple as well. But man, these guys are not, they're not stood still. And I say that in pretty much all my videos. These guys are coming for, they're going to eat some of that pie, because the quality is there for sure.
I think we spoke on this before, Daniel, that in Australia, when you go down the street, it's predominantly still iPhone, isn't it?
iPhone with a sprinkle of Samsung, probably about 30%, 35%. And it's the Samsung phones you see is predominantly like mid-range, like A series and base model S series phones. You don't see a lot of, or maybe you see a lot of Ultras and a lot of mid-range and a couple of older flagships, and that's probably. And then the iPhones is a sprinkle of, well, they all look the same from the back, so you can't really tell. But yes, you do see a lot of iPhones.
And are they Samsung? Are they available on? I just let that one fly. I'm not going to raise the debate. But are the Samsungs available on carrier deals here? Because obviously that's the way that most phones get in people's hands. So again, Samsung with these other phones, Alex,
some of the strongest carrier deals in the country. Like, they partner very heavily with the carriers, whereas like Apple don't really partner, but people buy it anyway. But Samsung have strong carrier deals with the partners.
And with these other devices you're talking about, Alex, the Oppos and Huawei's, and they're not so readily available on carrier, so people are going to have to go out and physically buy them. Would that be the case?
I think in some markets they are. They do have, I mean, like I said, in South America and Asia probably, they do have, it's almost like the default option to get these devices. But yeah, over here is going to be quite a niche thing to do. I don't even know if you walk up to an O2 shop or a T-Mobile here in the UK or whatever, one of those Vodafone, can you buy these devices? I'm sure you can, but it's probably not the default option. They'll probably just try to push you an Apple or a Samsung. Or...
A question for the two of you, because I think, Daniel, you have used some of these other devices, right, occasionally. I was just wondering, no? Have you not done anything other than Samsung's, no?
That's it, yeah. I've seen them in the stores, but in Australia, we only really get Pixel as our alternative, and there's a sprinkle of others in our open channel retailers like our buy them outright instead of buying it on a plan.
So then a question directly at you, Alex, as you're the one with the hands-on with it. How much does Android vary in these other skins?
Quite a bit. I'm surprised by how much it varies, but I'm also surprised at how much it evolved. I mean, and it's probably a wrong thing to do that in 2025, but my first expectation when I unbox these devices is that it will be almost like a toy version of Android. It's not real, it's kind of an inferior. Right or wrong, that's what my expectation is. But when I started using, I think the Honor was the first one that I thought, oh wow, this is different. Their version of Android is really, really nice, really smooth. A lot to be said as well about the processing power behind these machines, right? A lot of these devices have Snapdragon 8 Elite now, all the flagship ones, and it makes the OS feel really fast. So, but on top of that, they do have, the Xiaomi animations, for example, and just the fluidity of using the phone. It's almost better than, I think it's better than the iOS feel. It's really nice. Even the icons change as they're moving, and I think it's 144 hertz. Some of these displays, right there, it's buttery smooth to use. There's still some bloatware in some of them. I'm not gonna lie. It's almost like if you go back to Samsung in 2020, early 2020s, when there was still some, conflicting apps and apps that did the same thing as the Android stock. So there's a bit of that still. But man, if you ignore that, which is about 2% of the experience, the camera app on these phones is insane. Especially the Xiaomi ones. It's the Pro mode. It's easier to use. It's a lot friendlier to actually take photos as well. It's a minor thing.
Samsung or iPhone.
Exactly. Then both of them. I took it out. I think it was last weekend, just for kind of some nature shots and macro shots and things like that. Holy moly! They definitely is a bit of a leap in quality and user experience that I haven't seen recently. It's really, if you're a photographer and you want the best camera phone, I think right now you wouldn't go wrong with where is it with the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. I think there are things, for example, my experience so far, the battery is bigger, but it doesn't translate directly to the kind of the optimization that we get on iPhones and Samsung devices. Samsung more so than the iPhone. I think you get for how much battery you've got physically in the S25 Ultra, it's incredible how long it lasts. So there's a lot that Samsung is doing there that is like good. Whereas, with the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, it has a bigger battery, but doesn't translate to like a 2-day phone. So it's good. It lasts all day, even on a busy day, but it's not as good as the S25 Ultra in my short.
It's a lovely link in to Daniel. You finally got your long-term, because we were talking about last. I know you sat out the last pod with Tom because time changes zones were just too wacky. But when we were last together, you were saying that you had your long-term review coming, which I like the fact you just sat back a bit and actually, as we banged on so many times, you actually used the thing and found out it's good and it's bad. So where's it sort of sitting now in the pantheon of ultras?
In terms of recent ultras, I don't think, hardware-wise, it's better than all the other ultras, no doubt. Like the best display, the best camera setup that the ultras have had. It's thinner, it's lighter. Like hardware-wise, it's got that more about it. But I think the overall feeling still doesn't quite match for me the S23 Ultra when that came out. Like from a long-term
It's always the one you boys go to, isn't it?
It's always the one.
That's the one.
They got so much right there with the design, with the design, with the software, with the optimization of the processor, the camera setup, everything just kind of felt aligned. The S25 Ultra, I said the original title I had was Flawed Genius, where I just think that the phone is inherently got some flaws. It's obvious, but that's only if you compare it to everything else that exists, then you notice the deficiencies. But if you're using the phone and not using anything else, which a regular person will not use another phone alongside this, then you will have an incredible experience that you will be blown away by. Because One UI 7 is really nice to use. The process is really fast. The AI features are actually functional and useful. And the camera setup's consistent. And it's also got a lot of camera modes that you can use. And I don't know, I think as an overall package, if you're not comparing it and you're just using it, yeah, people will love it.
Yeah, I think that's the way we have to keep our sort of feet on the ground, because we get to try these other phones A-Bing them. And so then you can immediately tell differences. But when somebody's got that for 2 years, 3 years, they're going to love it and they're going to have great results with it. And they're not going to be referencing against that 23, are they?
No. But there's some mistakes here. Like the no Bluetooth in the S Pen, no matter which way you look at it, it's a mistake. Like it's a straight up mistake.
Like that. Just not enough users use it. That was it.
Less than 1% people were using it, and
just still 100,000 people more.
Yeah, but still a lot of people. Still a lot of people. But I think the part I like to say is that it's not having it. Sorry, it's not using it. It's knowing it's there.
Having it.
It's like it's like that tool that you keep in your toolbox for that one moment when you need it, or that odd piece of timber that you stash away. Like, I'll use this someday, and then bang, that moment arrives, and you go to your cupboard, and you've got that timber there ready. That's what it was.
Yeah.
You just don't need to get rid of it just because you don't use it all the time. So, yeah. Outside of that, though, it's an enjoyable experience as long as you review it on its own and you're not comparing it to everything else, which I think, again, for most people, that's exactly what they're going to do.
So at the moment then, Alex, which are you tending to think is your daily? What's got your main SIM in?
Still the S25 Ultra, mainly because, after, I think it was November, I moved, from the iPhone, I moved to the iPhone
download away, didn't you?
Whatever. So I was like, I'm not doing that again. So I moved all my banking apps, all my authenticators to the S25 Ultra. And then whatever I'm testing that week or, that day at the moment, it becomes my second or even third. So I've got 3 SIMs now because I am just trying too many things at the same time. But the S25 Ultra is the workhorse that does everything like serious, like my even editing photos. Sometimes I use that because of the pen.
I finished.
Is that for your yardstick? Sorry, I was just going to say before you get on that, Daniel. Is that still your yard? Is it then everything else compares up to the S25? Is that kind of where we're sitting?
Not for me. No, I think the S25 for my reviews, I'm trying to stay away from directly comparing everything to one device, to the iPhone or the S25 Ultra. I do think those are valuable, those comparisons. I mean, the best performing video in the last 6 months was just last week, a comparison video. But I think when people are set on buying something, they probably just want to know your opinion on that device and your experience on that device. So I'm trying to kind of stick to that and do reviews that are a little bit more objective. Of course, I'm going to add comparison elements in there. Like when I talk about the A56, for example, which is categorically a mid-range phone, we're going to have to talk about how it compares to the iPhone 16e from a value perspective, even though you should really be talking about the S24 Plus really directly, right? Because it's a more kind of in that range.
Or the fan edition.
Or the fan edition, yeah. So I think there's a bit of once you go below flagship, there's so many out there in that space. So I think I find it quite hard to compare everything to one device. I think we're going to have to start doing what those bigger channels do, which is review that device on its merit, and then do comparisons later.
Park it, put it down. So Dan, you were about to say.
I was just going to add about the S25 Ultra. In my review, I finished it with what other phone has the anti-reflective coating and the best display, the versatile camera system with all the camera modes, the 8 Elite for Galaxy, which is the fastest chip currently available on a phone, the S Pen, Samsung DeX, a big battery, and all the other stuff that you sort of get with a Samsung phone. No other phone offers that in total. Like the other phones, like the Xiaomi and the Oppo, they might have bits and parts of that, like the ultimate camera system or an amazing display, and sort of have them together. But when you factor in everything else, I still think the Ultra offers you that Ultra package, even with the reduced sort of offerings with no S Pen and no improved battery capacity, blah, blah, blah. All that sort of stuff.
That's why I love him. I'm very unlikely to buy Samsung, but just listening to that, I'm thinking, what am I missing out?
A lot.
It's awesome. I mean, if you just read some of my comments as well on the comparison I did with the 16 Pro, because remember we talked about this, right? I tried really hard not to just shit on Apple because it's
Did you get your device swapped out in the end? Was there a fault with it?
I did a remote diagnostics about Apple support, which is you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then they didn't find any issues, software or hardware. So I took it to the store. It's a whole BS, the whole thing. I think if you really put your foot down, which I didn't, they'll probably get your device replaced. But I didn't. I just said, all right, if you're saying that there's nothing wrong, I'm going to take a word for it. And I'll say that this device is now. But I know deep down that, when I talk to other people, they go,
the issues you had, I've not had, no.
So I've tried everything. I've reset it from scratch twice. And it did get better, to be honest, after 18.3. Some people are saying even disable Apple Intelligence because that's absolutely, slowing the iPhone down. I'm like, okay, well, I tried. That didn't make much of a difference. But it's one of those bugs that I don't know. I remember seeing the S22 Ultra with the Exynos chip having that similar thing, which was like
awful.
What just happened? You're typing and it's like you can hear the clicking and then nothing happens, and then you see that one of the end will get stuck, and it's like what the. And then you try to record that for the video because that's great content, but
the thing is,
it won't happen again for like 2-3 days.
We're kind of spoilt now. I mean, I'm of a certain vintage where I remember things not working regularly. It just happened, and I tell my daughter about
different.
What they were like in the 1980s. You had to warm them up when there was a manual choke to, all these. We're just so used to everything working now but there are still. I mean, the current car I've got actually is a Friday car. I mean, I'm chatting with them about it at the moment. There's just things that keep going wrong that shouldn't be going wrong. And it's the same. We're used to these phones working, but you still do occasionally get a rogue bit of hardware. It just happens.
And performance as well. I mean, I absolutely took it for granted. Since, I don't know, forever, I've used the top of the line iPhone or the top of the line Samsung or the Google. It's always been the flagship, the best of the best. So we've been quite used to things just being immediate and working. I've recently started looking at, for example, the mid-range phones like the Poco that has a MediaTek processor, which is not the top one, is like a one below, or the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, even on these newer phones. And you do see just navigation in general is noticeably slower. But I just can't accept that on the iPhone 16 Pro. And the Pro range should be snappy, never fails, never crashes.
No, mine has.
Crashes a lot. I mean, for an iPhone, for the Pro range, it's just crazy. I haven't done any drop tests because sometimes you think, for this case reviews that I do sometimes, or I used to do, I used to do drop tests, right? But for this one, I haven't done it. So there's nothing really that could be causing it.
I was going to say, David, you did a video this week about downgrading from a flagship to the sort of mid-range iPhone and the Mini.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. How was that whole experience in the Apple land?
Yeah, I'm really loving it. And it's not talking about necessarily if the 16E is the best mid-price phone. What I'm loving is not having those complications with me and just going out and just having a phone that you barely knows with you because it's lightweight. It does everything you need it to do. And it lasts and lasts and lasts. And if I want to take pictures, the pictures on that phone, I was just replying to somebody's comment saying, in the right hands, you can still take creative shots. It's all about lighting, framing. Most of it is about having the right eye on what you're taking, not necessarily about the hardware. So, again, we were just saying we get kind of skewed visions. I'm in that lucky position now. If I know I'm going to go out for shooting, I'll take the Pro Max with me. But if I know I'm just going out for the day, and also I'm not risking getting the bloody thing stolen as well. If you're in London, you know what it's like, and you're trying to do shots, and you're looking at that 16E thinking that's $2,000 that could go walking any second on that tripod. You're always within arm's distance of it. Yeah. I was out yesterday. I mean, I only went I met you boys last year. I was in Eton yesterday doing a few shots for that video yesterday, last thing. But that's quite a safe location. But we all work alone. But then, yeah, I took the 16 Pro Max with me because I knew I needed to do shots with it. But that 16E has just taught me maybe I should just put the money towards getting another camera, because I'm using that phone as a camera, not as a phone. So maybe I should just learn the lesson and go and buy myself another Canon, or and actually just use the phone for what the phone's worth. I mean, yeah, we have to go and buy these phones because of what we do and review. And if the Air comes out later this year, then I'll be torn. Do I buy the Pro? But the Air is probably newer to talk about, because we all need content. We all need to find something fresh to talk about. But I've really enjoyed it. And so much so, in fact, I've really stripped back the apps on my home screen. I bought a little icon pack from Canoopsy. I've gone really, really minimal. I've got four icons on my home screen. It's just stripped back. Just what I need.
So I'm loving it. Funny story. My son is now officially a teenager, so I'm actually freaking the oldest of us all. But the funny thing is, we gave
need to reference old here. Let's move on, shall we? It's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm kind of delicate. Yeah.
Put balloons in the edit for his birthday. How many?
Like this today, boys.
21 balloons. Is that it?
Yeah.
That was a visual reference for our audio listeners.
Yeah, they wouldn't have got that.
You can make an emoji of that now. Apparently, really
I
cool.
turned off camera reactions. So yes, you were saying, son.
Yeah, because he's a teenager now. We felt okay. We'll give him his first phone. So we gave him my old 13 mini, which I still had. Can't like you said, in the right hands, even the 13 mini. And whenever I picked that up, I was like, oh my gosh, why can't I have a newer, like if that 16E was a 16 mini, that I think would sell even more, because that form factor is so lovely. And yeah, you don't need much. No, I feel like, the 13 mini's camera is awesome. I mean,
that was the equivalent of the S23. Everyone raves about that 13 mini. I never had it, but everyone raves about it. But the idea came to me last weekend. The essence of that 16E was to then pair it up with the iPad mini. So the way I went with it was twofold. I was getting two for one. I'm getting a larger iPad and a phone for the price of my Pro Max. Well, £100 less, actually. I was like, why is no one mentioning that is a lovely little combo? I can go out for a day with the iPad mini and the iPhone. I can get pretty much anything I want to get done. Why would I bother with the Pro stuff?
Annoying. In a way, it's the annoying thing, right? Because I actually saw one of our previous guests, Sam. He said something.
He posted this morning. I've seen, I haven't watched it yet, but
I think it was yesterday on Twitter. He said something like, "I'm still using the iPad from 2018 and getting a lot done with it." So yeah. So we had the M1, we had a 2020, then the M1, that was the M1, I think. M2, M3, it is like M4 now, right? Yeah, and still using the 2018, which is crazy, right? Because I think Apple could do so much more with the software, right? The hardware is there. There's not much to change. The iPad, I think I still have the iPad Pro. Awesome screen, beautiful display, to watch content. But man, it lacks some functionality or some software features, really.
Which two phones are you using now, Daniel? Because obviously the S25 Ultra is the main one, I take it. Is it the FE or the S?
The
foldable
one. Yeah, it's
right.
That's my second. I put up a poll on my community post saying that what old phone should I switch to for a week? There was the S6 Edge, the S7, Note 9, or the S21 Ultra, and the Note 9 is currently winning by like a fraction. So I'll see whether second one was the S6 Edge, which is the oldest of the lot.
That was lovely. Yeah.
Which is a nice phone. I've got it sitting there. Yeah. 2015 it was. That was my first year I started at Samsung.
A little bit of retro, right? A little bit of retro.
Yeah. Crazy to say that's a retro phone, but
a fingerprint scanner. It was awesome. Yeah,
it did. It had a fingerprint scanner. It had a 16 megapixel rear camera. Like, it was a good phone. Wireless charging. It was the first Samsung phone with built-in wireless charging, so I could do it because wireless charging is pretty key to that. But anyway, we'll see what I decide.
As we just switch through the gears, briefly touching on WWDC, the dates have been announced this week, which is nothing new. Everyone listening to this or watching this podcast will know it's June 9th. Yeah, I mean, it's an important conference from a point of view that it's announcing software generally. And yes, we have had some hardware.
Sorry,
come back in the room.
I fell asleep. Sorry.
I'm gonna try and crack out a short after this, actually, because I've got some stuff on my mind to say.
What are they bringing? Come on.
Well, it's not what they're bringing. It's how they're going to address the elephant in the room. That's what I'm most keen on.
They won't do that.
I'd love to see a slice of humble pie, but I don't think there's going to be saying anything along the lines of, we said some stuff last year, we haven't quite managed to deliver it. I don't think those words are going to be coming from anybody. They can't put the genie back in the tin. They've got to discuss AI in some way. I don't know if I don't know. Have you boys noticed that there's a change in perception with AI though? I was talking to, my daughter, she works for Warner Music in marketing, right? So she's with a load of 30-year-olds in a creative, high pressure, buzzing industry. And I was talking to her about AI and she said, no, most of us do not want it. No, she was saying, if I can't write a message to you without AI help me write a message, if I can't write an email to somebody,
I've seen the
people,
opposite.
And I was only referencing that. I was wondering if Apple are going to almost ironically, and we'll only know with the wash of time, be in the right place at the right time, in that AI is going to get just rein back in a little bit. I don't know if we went too gung-ho too quick. It could do everything. The server that I installed this week, there's AI on that server. I will never use the AI features on the server.
It's
when you consider when you consider that ChatGPT released that image generation this week, and then their servers are currently melting, right? The GPUs are melting because of the use of it. There is the use of AI are going to only ever increase. Like even watching ads on TV for sports betting companies, they're integrating AI into their chatbots about which horse you should bet on. It's only going to be integrated more and more into the things that we already use. And I know my accountant was talking about it on the weekend that he uses it to draft his LinkedIn posts. Like he doesn't copy it directly out, but he definitely uses it and then fixes it up and then posts it.
Yeah.
It's turned things that potentially would become like a stumbling block for like content wise, and small businesses are now turning to it as a way of getting stuff out there, but doing it efficiently. I don't think it's going anywhere. I just can't. I know people are hesitant about it, but I think the sheer drive and will of companies is going to make it go further.
It's here to stay, and it's clear that boards want it to be part of every big corporation's lineup. I get that. I don't for 1 minute think it's going to disappear. I just wonder if it's going to get reeled back in. And I know Alex a minute ago, you said, why wouldn't you use it? I think, well, because you've got a brain. We can all sit and write a story,
Here's the thing. Okay, let me put my counter argument to that very point, because I'm an IT consultant, so I can see the corporates, and what they're trying to do. And you're right. I mean, AI as it stands today, and the kind of the write this for me or reply to this email automatically, and Google are introducing, right? Those things are kind of services that you use, and everyone is going to very quickly, and if not already, I've already seen videos from big channels sounding like ChatGPT wrote the entire script. And it's like, okay, well, you've definitely went a bit too far here, and you literally just read an AI prompt. Those services that people are consuming are they're the same. So everyone very quickly sounding the same. So you definitely right on that.
Yeah.
But what companies are trying to do, and I've started to see, I mean, the Mac Mini opened my eyes to this, by the way, because that was the first time I thought, okay, what can I really do to push this? And it was LLM work. Having your own model, but then trying to teach it. It's called fine tuning, which is basically saying when this question comes up, this is the way I typically answer. So go and search for this, go and search for that, do your thing. But when you answer it, this is my take on it. This is how I do it. So you're kind of teaching your own way. So in a way, the next evolution, I think, for consumer devices is to have local capabilities like that, so that you teach it and you will learn how you speak it, how you do things, Samsung with the Now Brief is a very kind of
early concept
level of that, because you can think about, okay, well, they're learning about my behaviors. So if I go on a run at 10 a.m. every 3 days or whatever, it will know that that's when I do certain things, and then you will recommend stuff based on that. So you can start to see it, but I think we're probably a couple of years away from seeing that on consumer devices. But if you look at the Mac Studio with 0.5 terabyte in RAM, I remember having struggling to have that
when
in
I'm
a
talking
server.
about, I have to get that right. RAM, not memory, not storage. RAM. It's
Not that long ago, around 2015, when I was using the S6 Edge, I used to work, and I had to at the time go to data centers and like fit like hard drives into servers. And I remember having like half a rack to fill in like a 1 terabyte of data. Now we have half of that rack not in storage, in memory.
Yeah.
On a tiny little thing. I mean, people don't seem to get this, right? People who grew up are very young, in their 20s or whatever, don't get that concept that we have. Like just the notion of having that much storage in a tiny thing. But the power that will give us is exactly the power of AI. So I think that's why I think it's not going away, because when you load AI models into memory, and 512 gig is not really going to give you the deep sea, whatever they call it, right? The deep blue, whatever. But it will give you a beefy enough llama model that you can teach it and train it to do probably 90% of what you need it to do, right? From a writing, from a creative, from a generation of images and stuff. It's going to be. So I think that there's space for you to use AI and still be you, and be creative using AI. But the danger right now is that people are just using the same thing and sounding the same, and and that's tricky.
One of my mates is a teacher at the biggest private school on the Gold Coast here, and he said they've been using it in class. So one of the assignments they had was you need to enter a prompt into ChatGPT to design a theme park. So you need to enter the prompts, and then the theme park will be designed using the image generation, and then you need to build a presentation about the theme park that you've had ChatGPT design. And they're teaching them about the prompts that you can give into AI to curate it into the way you want it to be. So that's becoming part of the learning structure at school.
Is a key thing as well, yeah.
Right? And then they sort of take that away and then present it back, like talk about what rides there are, talk about food, cost structure. So there's other stuff building around it. But because it's not going anywhere, it's going to be in schools. And this generation, like my son who's 7, he's going to grow up at school with AI a large part of his entire school journey, which I don't know how to feel about it just yet. Oh, well.
I think right now it's good to experiment, right? It's good to use more than one as well, because what I've seen with ChatGPT, for example, is very quickly it will start to agree with you in every aspect. It's like, so when you talk with it about political stuff and views of the world, it's very, very tricky to just listen to one, because I noticed that you will start to kind of adapt to your own way of thinking. It won't challenge you as much as others. So I think
so it's almost waiting to learn from you what your political views are before it'll have a conversation with you.
And it molds to you. So it's kind of like, okay, you're pleasing me. You tell me exactly what I want to hear.
But
that's not the point. I want to
got a yes man.
Sometimes I just want to learn something, right? So you don't want something to just agree with you all the time.
But back to your original WWDC point, I don't think Apple can hide. I know you were sort of saying that
this
they may be
more exciting than WWDC.
I know.
Maybe them accidentally dropping the ball with AI is like a long-term good thing. Apple, I don't see it. I think they're the impending class action lawsuit that they're going to face from people for false advertising. I don't think it's going to amount to much, but the fact that that's sort of happening showcases what people's thoughts are about their dip into AI so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's the marketing team more than anybody that must be sweating right now, because they know they've got to address something. And I just don't know quite how they're going to go. Now they're talking about this major redesign for iOS 19, which, you just wonder if their resources are not too fractured. Maybe everyone's still a little bit too
major redesign, right?
Well,
they're making the icons.
Yeah, I mean, there's meant to be all sorts of design changes, more than skin deep, is what they're saying. But you then begin to think maybe everyone there's just a bit battered at the moment, and morale's maybe a little bit low.
This is the redesign from a square. There you go. I redesigned completed.
I think it's too early to tell until we see what they actually announce. If they're saying it's going to be major, I think it could be something more than skin deep. But, and this isn't me defending them, I'm just saying from a business point of view, I don't know if it's the right time to be going to something that big. They've ditched off the Apple car. They've got all those resources. Then they piled those into AI. that's at the moment in a quagmire, and people just got to get faith back in Apple at the moment. Not from the hardware.
I've got the thumbnail for this week, by the way. It's going to be AI generated. I think we should have our faces as squares or something like that. But anyway,
I think what you sort of said there about Apple can't just do a redesign. They can, because they know the press and the media and the journalists will absolutely spread it like wildfire, and it would almost kind of cover up their intelligence sort of failure. And everyone's going to be talking about how they've got circle icons instead of square.
Yeah,
but
then
kind
it
of
comes
gets
back
forgotten
and it's
about.
actually not. If it comes back, it's actually not all that good. That's 2 years on the bounce. So I've had a lot of.
It's not just 2 years, though, right?
No. Well, I'm talking WWDC.
Yeah, but I know it's been a disappointing WWDC for many years. We always hear. I mean, but when they brought Vision Pro into the conversation, it's like, okay, well, that's a letdown as well. But I think Apple can still. That's the truth, right? Let's face it. They can still rely on their power and the people just buying their shit without thinking. They can absolutely do a skin change and get away with it. And that's probably what they will do, because they're like, well, there's, people are still buying our stuff. Why push the boundary and take risks? Because they can still sell it and make a massive, not
that I necessarily like to point fingers, but I've begun wondering this week, because WWDC and the conferences have now all become pre-recorded. And there's no reason for them to be anymore. When they're at their best, they're actually lively, energetic, because some interaction.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I don't know if Tim Cook's sitting at the top there now and just saying, I don't know if he's just, we know his background.
He's got to go, man.
I just think he's, I don't know. I don't think it's just playing too safe.
As a company, you can't fault them, because they are doing everything an enterprise should be doing, which is
they're making money,
profit.
Yeah.
But from a consumer perspective,
I didn't think. It took me a long time to just wonder if it's possibly coming from the top. If the cancer's coming from the top, I don't like these pre-recorded events. They're amazing to think. Yes, technically they're phoned on a night. The production, the colouring, all fantastic. But it's too cold now. I just want some energy back.
Looking at it without emotion, the audience is developers, right? Which is, yes, it's an important. They say it's an important part of their ecosystem. Let's face it, it's a tiny minority that will not care, that the normal consumer will not even know WWDC exists. There's a nice shiny iPhone, and from a status perspective, I'm holding a premium device, and that's all they will care about. Unfortunately, that's still true.
Think about too the pre-recorded events, how many viral clips end up making it past the mainstream or past the tech community of that Craig guy zooming somewhere, or his hair, like that sort of breaks out and becomes viral. So why would what reason would they have to remove that from their playbook when they know that all they need to do is get this guy playing a guitar in a video?
And way to do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's another fault with them, though, is that at the moment they've only got one playbook. They do it the Apple way, and sometimes you can't just do it. Here's a release. They've got to learn to be more flexible. I think right now they need to take a hit on the chin and say something's not quite what. Yes, we are still selling, but that will stop. I was watching a podcast last night about Tesla. Tesla are in all kinds of shit at the moment.
Yeah, but think about why Tesla's
the floor.
Yeah, well, it started to recover, but if you think about why they're in the shit, it's a lot different.
You won't see Tim Cook.
You won't see Tim Cook going out there. Doge efficiency stuff or whatever, or doing a salute on stage. That won't happen.
But their cars haven't refreshed really in a decade. They're still peddling the same cars, apart from the truck, which is falling to pieces. And it's saying you could, now with these other EVs coming along with VWs and Audis and BMW Mini, you name it, everyone can get an EV now. He's got competition, which he didn't have. And I don't know, it just struck me there was some similarities.
It's a different relation there. I think, you can't be conflated. I don't think Apple will ever be that risky, like Elon has been with his business, but.
Oh,
your point is true that something has to change.
It does,
and they're not taking risks, and they need a Tesla-like moment, but it won't happen in the same way that is happening with Tesla. But
no, it wasn't ever
a big wake-up call, like the entire industry had, and I feel like we're going through this cycle again, where this feels, and I said this in one of my videos recently, right now feels like 2005, 2006. Where we had a plethora of innovation across the consumer world, and then boom, Apple came up with this thing, and it's like, how is the big moment the iPhone came up in 2007. Right now feels like that preamble to the iPhone, and I think it will take someone. It could be Apple again, but someone to come up with something like, okay, right, that's the way forward. It just feels like the whole thing is very stale, and when it comes to handheld devices, there's not much.
I mean, you can tell I've given it a lot of thought, because there's things clearly going wrong. The wheels are sort of coming off the wagon. Okay, when you're that successful, you can afford to have a few loose wheels before things really hurt. But nonetheless,
just imagine this one thing, right?
The signs are there.
Yeah.
Then we talk studios. Yeah.
The iPhone rumors that we've seen recently. Maybe we can put a screenshot here of what that looks like at the back. It's got a huge space for
the camera and foldable. Yeah.
So it's got the same sort of three cameras or whatever, but there's enough space in that module to have a mini camera, not a mini screen. And I thought, wouldn't if they brought a back display to the iPhone, boom, that's innovation enough, and kind of taking it enough of a risk for people to go, wow, they're back and whatever. And I would say applaud that.
There was a brand that did that. There was a brand, I think Xiaomi did that 3 or 4 years ago.
So you could see
the screen on the back next to the cameras. So that concept exists
on the main camera. Yeah,
and I don't see. Apple
I mean, even the flip, right? If you look at
hardware risk, the flip, yeah.
I know the rumors are ramping up now that 2026 is going to be the foldable year for Apple. I mean, it's still early on; it is just rumors, but I mean, it sounds like they're going to dip their toes in the market. But
I've heard that rumor every year since they released their foldable.
But the thing
next year, Apple's working on their foldable. Next year's Apple, and then it just hasn't happened.
But the thing is, it still be the same playbook, and I need to break the playbook. They need to move forward. It's what we were saying a minute ago, that there's something lovely in kitsch to retro, but they can't always hark back to what was good in 2015. They've got to look at where things are now and they've got to evolve a bit. That's what
Don't you think the Vision Pro was that? Like they tried with the Vision Pro, and it has been a huge failure. I would say from a market point of view, it hasn't responded to it in a way that I think Apple probably expected to.
I don't know if they would have expected. They always knew it was going to be niche, and the whole VR AR industry hasn't taken off. And you would say, well, if it hasn't taken off after Apple's dip into it, but again, they kept the same playbook there. It was like, we'll announce it at a conference and we'll put it on sale. What they should have done was got more people together, more people hands on. They should have maybe waited a little bit longer and got the price a little bit lower, made it a little bit more affordable. But no, we're doing it now. I don't know. I've given things a lot of thought. Done a lot of writing about this as well, but it's it's good to feel passionate about something. That's all I would say.
And that's what
we've had a good chat here, chaps. This is actually a podcast.
Passion is what's missing at the moment.
It is. I totally agree with you. The hardware is as good as it's ever been, but the leadership and obviously some of the software issues are letting it down. The hardware is chuffing brilliant right now.
It is.
It really is.
It is.
Samsung's One UI 7 rollout has been a bit of a hot mess.
Just from the video on that, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just been I know it's currently beta, but the final version of One UI 7 on the S25 Ultra is missing things that the beta has. So I'm like, well, why hasn't the final version got it? It's because the timelines of this whole launch has been completely thrown out, because they normally would have One UI 7 wrapped up by now, but because they never did, it's now just all over the place. But I think that's kind of like they're copping heat from the tech community. But if you can imagine this was Apple rolling out iOS 18 and everyone was like, it was so fractured, it would be front page news from a lot of people. I mean, Apple Intelligence, I guess, has kind of been their version of it. But yeah, Samsung aren't blameless here. Like they've had a bit of a mess of this One UI 7 rollout for sure.
I know we said to you before, I think it was talking about the FE possibly, and I sort of said to you, what's their release schedule? And you just said, whatever they fancy. It's kind of like, they sometimes surprise you and just throw phones out there just because.
Well, they missed the Fan Edition missed a year. Like they had the S20 FE, the S21 FE, and then the S22 FE never happened. And then just jumped straight to the S23 FE right before the S24 came out. And then there's an S24 FE. Now there's going to be the S25 Edge. Yeah, there's really no sort of rhyme or reason to their extra devices surrounding their flagships. Their flagships will launch in January, July. Yeah. It's the devices that surround that, the mid-range and the sort of entry-level phones that you just don't know. You really can't tell any.
So shall we enter into the final furlong, talking about studios? Alex, you put up a video this week talking about your studio and showing us behind the scenes. Daniel and I have both been there, of course. And Daniel, you let Gray in the chat this week. Hey, I'm moving. I'm going to be building a studio.
Yes, I am.
I managed to take this one.
To remember, I think maybe we say it's not about studio. It's about the space you use to create, right? Because we've all started somewhere. I was for the first 2 years on the channel doing stuff in my house, a small, tiny, like it was meant to be like an office space, and it was like a half a bedroom. Couldn't swing a cat, as they say. It was really tiny, but and I think I said that in my review, and it was actually nice to go back and say, right, where did we start, and I kind of see the progression. And I think the important message was, do bit by bit. Right, because there's a lot of things that I want to do still, even today. I want to put more acoustic stuff in here. I want better lights, more lights. There's never enough lights, but more lenses, more cameras. Right, there's always more that you want to do. But one thing you can't get caught up with is, and I do that pretty much on a weekly basis, is just create with what you've got at the moment, wherever you are. You might be in a car, it might be in a bedroom. The content and kind of tops everything else. And I made that mistake, and I make that mistake on a weekly basis. Yes, the space is lovely, and it actually helps, right? To have a decent space, to have enough space.
Yeah,
it does help. I mean, I could be tired, like I am right now, drinking high energy drinks, because editing to 1, 2, sometimes 3 a.m. and more. Doesn't help. But when you come in the morning and it's a nice clean space, and it helps. Doesn't matter how tired I am, I come in here and I feel
there's an energy,
fresh. There's a bit of energy to it does help from a creative perspective.
100%
to have a dedicated space, even if it's is a bedroom, even at home. I remember thinking it's nice to have a little corner here where I can come in and create. So I think that was the main message. Not so much about the gear, and I do get excited about talking about the stuff, but I don't want to come across as showing off. Oh, look at all the stuff that I have. It's not about that. It's about progression and how hard how hard we have to work to build this stuff.
Same as me. I started off. Well, I think I sent a picture to you boys this week of my old radio studio at home. So when I moved, I was still on radio, and I said I need to have a dedicated studio. That I was there for 3 months and decided to come off radio and jump into this. But this place now, I actually haven't been in that much this week because I needed to go out and do a few location shots and blah, blah, blah. And I was really looking forward. I'm here for the day. And I was really looking forward just to being, once we finish, open up the soundproofing curtains, I can have the daylight pouring in. And it's just a nice place to sit and work. Yes, I can technically do all the editing and everything at home. And Daniel, you've got all this to look forward to. You are moving. You're going to have your own dedicated studio space. So talk about this.
Yeah. So it's going to be in the house.
How much your money?
Well, we're moving house, so we're going from
spend your money.
We're going from our 2-bedroom apartment or unit, ground floor unit, into a 4-bedroom house with a garage and 2 bathrooms and a full open kitchen.
It's got it's going to be written all over it.
Well, yeah, it's got one of the bedrooms is going to be my office / studio space. It's not going to be massive, but I think
doesn't need to be though, does it?
I can just leave things set up. Like at the moment, because I'm filming in the corner of my wife and I's bedroom, like not only is there shit everywhere, like if you looked at the table or the chest of drawers, whatever they're called, the dresser, there you go. The tabletop of that dresser has 2 cameras, my Pocket 3 Neo, about 10 phones on it, lights, like it's full of shit. And then I always have to constantly set up the lights, set up the camera, make sure the desk is cleared because that's my backdrop, and have to make sure the house is quiet because the kids are right there if I need to film when they're home. So there's just a lot that needs to sort of line up for me to create. Whereas I think with the dedicated office, I can leave the lights on the stand. I can leave the camera on the tripod.
That setup time is such a it's a creativity killer, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not that it takes much time. Like it maybe takes 10 minutes, but it's
that bit of energy.
It does because you have.
You got that idea, that buzz, and So I was saying about doing that short. After this, all I've got to do is spin the camera out. I'm ready for the short, and it's things like that. The lights all here, bang, go. And it's just.
It's in not till 6 months away, so it's a while.
Have you signed the paperwork? Is it all done?
Oh no, that's all agreed. We're not. it's a bit of a complex situation. I'm going to sound like I'm taking advantage of my parents here, but they own another house, and we're going to rent it off them, and then we're going to rent this place out to someone else. So it's like the reason we thought of it is because, well, eventually one day, it's going to sound really bad. One day that house might be ours. Like years and years, like years.
How delicately put.
Years and years away, like a long time away from now. Anyway, the thought is that like my dad's retired, my mum wants to retire, like they've got an investment property, they want to renovate it. We need bigger space. My son's growing up, he needs some space to kick the football around because he's obsessed. I need my own dedicated office. It just kind of fit and lined up with the timelines, and that's all. It's all agreed. We're doing it. It's just now waiting the time out, and
And Alex, as well as I know you, and I think it was roughly the same time that you and I were getting to know one another. You said in that video this week, which I did sit and watch late on, I think it was early one morning. I was sitting watching it, actually, very early one morning. That you nearly gave up in 2020, and I did not know that about you. I thought, neither told me that.
I never shared that.
Oh, right. Okay, so we're little Johnny No Mates over there. Didn't think he'd tell his friends. No,
I never shared that. With,
sod you two.
I shared that with people in my family and people. Cause,
shared with his friends.
I think because I do get the odd message, and they're lovely, even if it's just one message ever. But I do get quite a few messages sometimes on DM say, "I don't even like tech, but I watched your videos and it kind of brightened my week up." There's people going through a lot of issues, and so I felt like sharing bad news in a video that some people, even if it's one person, might use to cheer themselves up. I was like, I don't want to, it's not fair. But because it was a story, right? The last 3 years sort of story, I thought, that makes sense because, it wasn't easy. I mean, that I think it was 9 months, of, if it wasn't the leak that happened in here, there was a massive.
I remember that clearly,
flooded.
Yeah.
It was then the lack of light. I bought this. I kind of rented the studio because of the natural light that I get here, and I didn't have that for 9 months in the first year.
Scaffolding, wasn't it? It was all down one side of the building.
And that coupled with the fact that this is not my full-time job. Still, I had a lot going on. It did nothing for my mental issue. So creating the videos and getting the video out was actually the highlight of my week, for those months. But it was. I did think, what the hell am I doing this for? This is clearly not going to happen unless. And I definitely thought I'll just give up and do something else, because it was not healthy, not a happy place to be. It was awful. But
I think we're glad you're still here doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely glad I stuck with it.
Yeah, and I suppose Daniel, you must have had days when you get those days, you put a video up early on, particularly when you just think nobody's watching this, and it hurts. It really does kick hard.
Hurts. I mean, that very video didn't do well, right? So it's like,
wouldn't. No, because it was, you made it, for you, I made one last week. It was just a sit down and talk one about, the state of Apple, and I knew it wouldn't do well. And I partly driven by the fact that I had a sponsor video, like you were talking about, Daniel, wait to come out, and I thought I need to do something. So I just sat, but I knew the video wouldn't do well, even though I was really passionate about what I was talking about. But no, it helped the fact that I'd been to your studio. Clearly, it was really interesting. It was very personal. But I think the story about not giving up, and we've all had those kick in the nuts when you just think it's just not worth it.
Yeah,
it's just not worth it.
Some people go through a lot harder thing. That was almost like first world problems. Like the guy's got a studio and is complaining, right? Which is why another reason why I never mentioned it, because it's like, I could just go back to my bedroom and do it. So shut up and get on with the work. So that was my mentality, right? But I think, there's a lot of bigger problems out there that people not even have money to get a phone to record stuff. So it's kind of in perspective.
You were cocking your head when I said that, Daniel, about we've all had those days of thinking. Have you never thought?
Well, it's hard because I come from I was a very competitive sports person when I played football. And if I lost, the next thing I wanted to do was get back out to the next game and play again to rectify it. So whenever I have a video that is underperforming in that first few days, all I want to do is get another video out to correct it and almost fix it. So I never really feel like it's I can't, look at me, I can't do it. I'm not getting through this. In my head, it just spurs me a little bit more to be like, get that out there, get the next one going. The only time I ever kind of feel a little bit anxious and under pressure is when I've like got lots of sponsors. It's a really weird thing because it's like such a positive thing. But if I've got like 5 or 6 sponsors,
we want that, right? We want
lined up,
yeah.
It's like, because I'm so used to just making videos and no one having to look at it. I just post it.
It's different, isn't it? It's different.
Whereas with a sponsor, you're under pressure to meet their deadline. Then you've got to have them review it. And it's also not something that I'm quite comfortable talking about. Like could be a portable charger. I'm like, I don't talk about portable chargers, but you've still got to find an angle to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to have the brand be happy with it. So there's like a lot of things that line up, but that's the only anxiety I feel. And I then have to remind myself, they're giving you money. Just relax. But the studio video, Alex, definitely when I watched it, it was such a timely thing to watch because of the fact that I'm sort of heading in. So I was taking real note of the spaces that you've got set up around the sort of the area. I won't be able to replicate most of them, but what have you how have you curated the spaces? Have you kind of just, as you've gone, realized what you might need and then built the space, or did you build the spaces and then add to them?
So the vision for coming here, my vision even before I looked for the space was, what do I want to have in the space? And my vision was to have multiple sets, like mini, like in a studio, right? To have areas that I can point the camera at. So that's a set over here. There's a set over there. There's one corner that I never show in the video, and I think I showed it in the studio briefly, which is the kitchen area. It's like there's this thing in the middle of the studio with a tap on it. So I absolutely hate that thing. But apart from that space, it's always been with a vision to have multiple functional areas, and I'm adding to it. I mean, I just recently added a dedicated top-down setup, and it was like, so I have a top-down thing in the ceiling. I think you saw here when you came here, right, Daniel? But the reality was I never have the energy to go, oh my gosh, I got to go and set that up, right? And if I leave it all set up, I'm wasting a whole camera. So I'm thinking it has to be something that is easy to attach and detach. So I built a desk for that. There's a sofa and there's the podcast room. So there's little bits.
It's funny
I can
you
just use as a
mentioned
set.
the top down. I was talking with Sam Beckman this week, who is going to be a guest on the pod soon, and he had a room built in his studio specifically just for top down. Like it's a room that he's sort of walled off. He's got a A7 IV camera mounted to the roof, and that's his top down studio. I'm like, that's incredible. So I asked him about it this week. I'm like, what ceiling mount are you using? And he's just recently pulled the ceiling mount, or he's not using the ceiling mount anymore because anytime the kids banged into the wall, it sort of was giving little micro vibrations. So he's got a C-stand that is fixed into the stud on the wall. And I love the thought process that creators have to overcome problems. I'm like, I just can't wait to get into my own space to be like, right, how am I going to overcome problems, or what permanent areas can I have set up? And I know it's not going to be massive. Anything's bigger than the corner of my bedroom though. So that's
it's dedicated. That's the thing.
It's dedicated.
And
yeah.
And I learned this from Peter Lindgren, which we haven't had here yet, but we had it in a different podcast. And his studio is awesome. He's got these points on the wall. They're very discreet, and you don't see that in the video. But there are points that he can, again, attach and detach a camera to. So I've got this one in the ceiling, and I've got one behind the door. So I've got areas in the studio that I can literally just, plonk. So using the same, sounds silly, right? But using the same camera mounts everywhere. So choose one and just stick with it. And then have lots of this, baby pins that you can attach, not just a camera, but a light to it, is really helpful. If you can have trestles going across the ceiling, even better. But yeah, I used to have these vari poles. You can have literally almost.
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah.
You can have, and then it can become your gear tree almost. There's a lot that you can do to save space, but have things on wheels and have camera mounts everywhere would be my tip.
And never enough lights,
Never
enough lights.
I did get a second camera. Yeah, I bought a second A6 700.
Nice.
As another B camera, just because it's better than the ZV E10. Just plain and simple.
This from the man that 4 months ago. Should we shoot it on Samsung now?
I was experimenting with. I was experimenting with multiple angles. I have always been doing that, but I didn't realize that there is an unwritten rule in cinema that you point the second camera to your dark side. So if your light is coming from this angle, have the B cam pointing at your dark side. So if this is my main camera, the B camera would be to my right.
Yeah.
Which is, I didn't know that because I did the other way and I thought that does look weird. And I didn't know what it was. And someone actually in the comments said, by the way, that's a lovely angle, but
yeah, it's the way the pros would do it. Yeah, but that's a great thing. You can just sit down and learn and watch, and
tiny little detail. Yeah,
it's the amount of photography channels I watch now, cinematography channels. It doesn't necessarily, it's way more than I ever need. But if you just take a little nugget out of that of what they do at that level, you think, I could try and use that and
watching director of photography videos. Oh my god, there's so much good value in how to light things. I mean, I'm not taking any of that advice right now because I'm underexposed here, but you do learn a lot.
Oh, that's I'm loving that. And the photography bugs really got me at the moment. I'm loving going out and just trying photography and just screwing up and learning and the whole thing.
See, now with the studio,
I can make everything by AI anyway. So
yeah.
So you say
with the studio on the horizon, is a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio out of the question? I don't think so. So we'll see in 6 months' time if I'm building a desk, whether or not there's room there for a Mac Mini. Are you still editing on the Mac Mini?
Yeah. Yeah, this is all being recorded through the Mac Mini still. No, I'm happy as Larry with it. No, it's sitting there. It doesn't get switched off ever. It's on 24/7. I've now got the server in the corner of the NAS.
Is that the M4 Pro you got?
M4 Pro, yeah.
That is good for editing, actually.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's really nice setup. And I've enjoyed using the NAS as well this week. That's been, that got sent through, and that's been another little thing I wanted to get on board.
Are you editing off of it, or are you just using for storage? Okay.
Just for storage. I haven't found that editing off it makes any great sense still at the moment. It's a little bit slower than the SSDs I'm using.
It's not SSDs, right? It's hard drive.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The speed won't be as good.
No. So, but it's great for accessing stuff and also uploading. When I'm binning stuff off for archive, it's so much quicker to upload to that than to cloud. So anyway, studio stuff, boys, toys. Can't get enough of it, eh? We've got Sam with us in a couple of weeks' time, you say, Daniel.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Sweet.
He's keen. He's definitely keen. I was speaking to him today, so he wants in. He's also got some good
date exactly.
So it's going to be about I've actually turned all the phones off. I'm a good boy.
I think it's the 11th.
Okay. All right, I might be able to make it actually because I don't.
Well, until
11th of April.
All right, I'll be here. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, sweet. Good stuff. Right then, boys. And there was us saying beforehand in our pre-meet, nothing to talk about. Shit, what should we talk about? Turned into one of our finest. One of our finest. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time, possibly with a fourth member of the team, Sam possibly, but with three of us, by the sounds of it, we'll definitely be back in a couple of weeks' time, so we'll catch you then. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and all lovely comments as well. See you soon.
Cheers all.